The morning sun streamed across Ravenwood Estate, glinting off the glass and steel of Ethan Carver's sprawling mansion. Every corner of the property reflected his meticulous taste. Modern minimalism polished to perfection. Ethan, a man of 6 feet with sharp gray eyes and an aura that demanded control, rarely allowed interruptions. Today would be different. The intercom buzzed, breaking the silence. "Mr. Carver, there's a young woman insisting on seeing you." The timid voice of his housekeeper Margaret came through. "She says it's urgent, and she has a child." Ethan frowned, setting down his tablet. "I don't see anyone without an appointment," he said, though his voice carried a tight edge. The tablet's screen displayed charts and numbers. A world where he alone held the reins. A baby was not supposed to enter that world. "Please, sir," Margaret persisted. "She says the baby is yours." Ethan's grip on the tablet tightened. A mistake, surely. He rose, long legs striding across the polished marble floor of his office. The doors opened with a whisper, and there she stood. A young woman with hair the color of midnight tied loosely so strands framed her sun-kissed face. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in pale blue cloth. The baby's tiny hands peeked through, curling instinctively. "Ethan Carver?" she asked, voice steady but laced with urgency. "Yes," he replied, suspicion sharpening every syllable. "I'm Celine Morrow," she said, holding her chin high. "This is your son, Lysander." Ethan blinked. His mind raced. Lyra, his former lover, had died in childbirth? It felt impossible. His empire, his carefully structured life, never accounted for chaos of this magnitude. "I don't understand," he said finally, voice rough. "How can this—" "She named you as the father," Celine interrupted, producing a crumpled envelope. The birth certificate rested inside. She handed him a small silver rattle, engraved with tiny stars. "She wanted him to have something of yours." Ethan's fingers trembled as he took it. The baby cooed softly, and for a moment, the world of contracts, mergers, and profits fell away. In its place was something raw, connection, responsibility, something that scared him more than any business deal. Footsteps echoed on the marble floor. Cecilia Hart, his fiancée, appeared, flawless in designer cream. Her eyes flicked from Celine to Lysander and back. "What is going on here?" she asked, tone sweet but edged with suspicion. "She says he's my son," Ethan said, voice low. He avoided her gaze, focusing instead on Lysander's tiny face, so fragile and perfect. Celine's eyes met his, unwavering, and he felt the first stirrings of an unfamiliar protectiveness. "Proof?" he demanded. Celine handed over the envelope, and he finally allowed himself to read it. The numbers, the names, everything confirmed it. His world, the life he had built with exacting precision, was no longer his own. The baby cried suddenly, high and insistent. Ethan instinctively reached out, hands awkwardly wrapping the child in his arms. Celine's fingers brushed his as she guided him, and in that contact he felt a spark. Subtle yet undeniable. A shiver ran up his spine, and for the first time Ethan realized that some deals, some connections, could not be negotiated. "We'll need DNA tests," he said finally, voice tight but resigned. "Do them," Celine replied with a small victorious smile. "But the child isn't going anywhere. Not while I'm here." Ethan watched her walk toward the guest suite, baby in tow, and felt something unfamiliar. A mixture of fear, awe, and longing. The empire could wait. This was bigger. This was life. The first night with Lysander was chaos, wrapped in quiet panic. Ethan stood in the nursery, tall and stiff, trying to soothe the infant who squirmed and whimpered in protest. The instructions Celine had given were clear. Hold him gently, don't drop him, and for heaven's sake, don't panic. Yet every movement felt foreign, every cry a challenge to his carefully curated composure. Celine lingered by the doorway, watching. Her purple-toned hair shimmered slightly under the soft glow of the nightlight, giving her an ethereal presence. "You're holding him like he's made of glass," she said softly, stepping closer. Ethan's gray eyes met hers, caught in that quiet spark that had ignited the first day. "He's fragile," Ethan muttered, voice rough. I don't know what I'm doing." "You'll learn," Celine replied, a playful smile tugging at her lips. She reached out, adjusting Ethan's hold on Lysander, and for a fleeting moment their fingers touched. Warmth spread through Ethan's chest in a way that had nothing to do with the heat of the nursery. Outside, shadows moved across the marble hall. Cecilia Hart, impeccably dressed even in the dead of night, lingered near the study, watching. She had made it clear she didn't intend to let this child, or Ethan, disrupt her meticulously planned life. Yet every time she approached, she hesitated, sensing the bond growing between father and son. Ethan paced with Lysander, trying to find some rhythm, some pattern, but the baby's cries were unpredictable. "How does she do it?" he muttered. "Every second perfectly. No mistakes." Celine laughed, soft and melodic. "Experience, patience, and a touch of intuition," she said, stepping closer again. Their closeness now felt electric. The air between them charged. Ethan noticed the curve of her jaw, the tilt of her head, the way her eyes held a quiet command. It made him aware of every sharp angle of his own face, every line drawn from years of control and dominance. Hours passed. Lysander finally calmed, eyes drooping, tiny fingers curling around Ethan's index. The room was silent except for the rhythmic breathing of father and son. Ethan, exhausted, felt a vulnerability he had never known. Celine approached, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "You're not as incapable as you think," she whispered. The closeness, the warmth of her hand lingered longer than necessary, and Ethan felt a jolt he couldn't name. This is new territory for me," he admitted quietly, not looking at her. "For both of us," Celine murmured. Yet her eyes betrayed amusement, curiosity, and something softer. The next morning, breakfast was tense. Ethan struggled to focus on reports and contracts while Lysander gurgled from his high chair, occasionally reaching out to grab Ethan's tie or hair. Cecilia's presence at the table was suffocating. Her smile sweet but her intentions sharp. She questioned every action, every glance between Ethan and Celine. "You're becoming domestic?" she asked, clearly incredulous. "I'm learning to care," Ethan replied flatly, ignoring the dagger in her tone. Later, alone in the nursery, Ethan found himself watching Celine cradle Lysander. The sight stirred something deep within him, a longing tempered by guilt and desire. Stepping closer, he said, "He recognizes you already." "He recognizes the bond," Celine replied, eyes meeting his. "And he'll recognize you too if you let him." They stood in silence, so close their breaths mingled, so close the tension was almost unbearable. Ethan felt a pull he couldn't resist. Hesitating only briefly, he leaned forward, pressing a tentative kiss to Celine's temple. A quiet acknowledgement of connection, of intimacy, born from shared responsibility. Outside the window, the first rays of sunlight broke through the trees. Inside, Ethan realized that control wasn't everything. Love, chaos, and life, unpredictable, demanding, irresistible, were claiming their place in his world. The following week brought tension like a storm on the horizon. Ethan's carefully scheduled world teetered between board meetings and midnight cries. Lysander, now a little more confident, grabbed at Ethan's shirt and Celine's hair with equal enthusiasm. The chaos was exhausting, yet strangely intoxicating. Cecilia Hart had made her move. She appeared at Sterling Manor with her usual polished demeanor, a lawyer in tow. "Mr. Ethan," she said smoothly, "I understand you've taken the liberty of involving yourself in matters beyond your expertise." Her gaze flicked to Lysander, who wriggled in Celine's arms. "A baby does not belong in a boardroom." Ethan's gray eyes narrowed. "He belongs with his family. That includes me." Celine stepped forward, her purple-hued hair catching the sunlight streaming through the window. "And with those who actually love him," she added, a subtle challenge in her tone. Cecilia's smile was sharp, but she sensed something shifting. Ethan wasn't the man she thought he was. Cold, controlled, predictable. He was fierce, protective, and far more capable of love than she had ever imagined. The lawyer handed over papers, custody threats and manipulative clauses designed to intimidate. Ethan scanned the documents, jaw tightening. Celine leaned close, whispering, "Ignore the theatrics. Focus on him." That evening, Ethan found himself alone with Lysander in the nursery. The baby's tiny hands clutched his fingers, and Ethan felt a surge of emotion he hadn't anticipated. Celine's voice came from behind him, soft and teasing. "You're learning fast." He glanced back at her, catching her eyes the color of twilight shadows. "I never thought I'd feel this," he admitted, voice low. "So responsible. So connected." Celine stepped closer, bridging the space between them. "It's more than responsibility. It's love," she murmured. Her hand brushed against his as she adjusted the baby's blanket, and Ethan's pulse quickened. The tension between them was undeniable, a magnetic force pulling them together. Later that night, after Lysander slept in his crib, Ethan found Celine waiting by the terrace. The moonlight bathed her purple-tinted hair, giving her an otherworldly glow. "This isn't easy," she said quietly, "balancing work, threats, and emotions." Emotions I don't control, Ethan admitted, moving closer. Their breaths mingled, hearts racing. The world outside, the lawsuits, Cecilia's schemes, the unforgiving corporate empire faded. All that existed was them, the baby's soft breathing, the electric connection sparking between two people thrown together by fate. And then it happened. Ethan's hand cupped Celine's cheek, thumb brushing against the curve of her jaw. Their lips met in a kiss that started tentative and grew insistent, hungry with the frustration of weeks spent in shared tension. It was a kiss that spoke of desire, of fear, of longing restrained by circumstance. Celine responded with equal fervor, her fingers tangling in his hair as if anchoring herself to him. They parted briefly, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. "We'll face them together," Ethan murmured. "Whatever comes, we protect him and each other." Celine nodded, the moonlight glinting in her eyes. "Together," she agreed. Just as the night seemed to settle, the faint click of the manor gates reminded them that danger was never far. Cecilia was watching, plotting, waiting for a single misstep. Ethan tightened his grip on Lysander, then on Celine's hand, as if drawing strength from both. The battle wasn't over, it was just beginning. But for the first time, he felt ready. Inside, the soft cry of Lysander echoed, a reminder that life, love, and chaos didn't wait. And Ethan, once so rigid, had begun to embrace it all. One heartbeat, one touch, one daring kiss at a time. The morning sun crept through Sterling Manor, painting Celine's purple-hued hair with gold. Ethan was already up, coffee in hand, pacing the nursery while Lysander played on the soft rug. The baby's laughter bounced off the walls. A fragile joy amid the storm Cecilia was quietly orchestrating. The lawyer's threats had grown more aggressive overnight. Papers demanding immediate custody hearings and ridiculous stipulations littered Ethan's desk. Celine, reading them with a furrowed brow, shook her head. "She doesn't understand love," she whispered. "Or family." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Love doesn't win against money, Celine." He glanced at Lysander, whose tiny hand waved at him as if sensing the battle ahead. "But I'll fight." By mid-afternoon, Cecilia arrived in person, impeccably dressed, her heels clicking on the marble floors like a countdown to confrontation. "Mr. Ethan, Miss Celine," she began, smooth as silk. "I trust you've reviewed the documents. Time is not on your side." Celine stepped forward, eyes flashing. "Time isn't on anyone who underestimates the bond between a father and his child." Cecilia's smile faltered for the briefest moment. Ethan noticed and seized it. "You think I'll let you dictate how I raise my son?" he asked, voice low, dangerous. "Think again." Cecilia's composure returned, but Ethan could sense her doubt. The tension in the room was thick, charged, almost tangible. Ethan moved closer to Celine, letting their hands brush in silent solidarity. The physical connection between them, electric and grounding, gave him courage. Later, when Cecilia had left, Ethan and Celine found a quiet corner of the terrace. The city stretched below them, but up here only their world existed. Ethan pulled Celine close, the baby monitor crackling softly in the background. "I can't stop thinking about you," he confessed. "About how natural it feels despite everything." Celine's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Ethan, we're thrown together by fate," she whispered. "But fate isn't a cage, it's a choice." Their hands intertwined, fingers tangling as though they belonged there. Ethan leaned down, kissing Celine slowly at first, then with growing urgency. Each kiss was a promise, a defiance of the chaos waiting outside. The baby's laughter on the monitor only intensified the intimacy. They weren't just lovers. They were a family learning how to exist in a world that refused to pause. That evening, Ethan practiced bottle-feeding Lysander while Celine watched, arms folded, amused. "You're improving," she said softly, her gaze lingering on him longer than necessary. Ethan looked up, catching the glint in her violet-tinged eyes. "I'm learning from the best," he replied, voice low, a smirk tugging at his lips. When Lysander finally drifted to sleep, Ethan and Celine sat on the terrace again. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of jasmine from Celine's hair. "We can't let her win," Ethan said firmly. "Not now, not ever." Celine leaned into him, their shoulders touching, hearts beating in sync. "We have each other," she whispered. "And that's enough to start." Their lips met again, more tender this time, savoring the closeness that had become rare in their hectic lives. Every kiss, every touch, felt like an anchor against the storm of threats and schemes surrounding them. Ethan realized that protecting Lysander also meant protecting the fragile, growing love between them. Just as the night seemed peaceful, A sudden knock at the terrace door shattered the calm. Ethan tensed, Celine following his lead. Outside stood a mysterious figure, shadowed and imposing with information that could change everything. The mysterious figure lingered in the terrace doorway. Tall and imposing, a briefcase clutched in one hand, Ethan instinctively stepped in front of Celine, his heart pounding. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice steady despite the tension in his chest. The figure's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. "Mr. Ethan, Miss Celine." The voice was calm, yet carried authority. "I have information regarding Cecilia Beaumont's plans, and the truth about Lysander's custody." Celine's violet-tinted eyes narrowed. "Truth? What truth?" The figure opened the briefcase, revealing stacks of papers, contracts, and photographs. Proof of Cecilia's manipulations, forged signatures, and bribed officials. Ethan's jaw clenched as he flipped through them. "She's planning to use Lysander as leverage," he murmured. "To control me, to force us into submission." Celine reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "Then we stop her. Together." The next day, armed with undeniable proof, Ethan confronted Cecilia in the boardroom of Sterling Manor. The room was grand, but her usual aura of dominance faltered as Ethan laid the evidence before her. "You underestimated us," he said quietly, each word cutting like steel. "Lysander stays with us. The law will see to it with everything in order." Cecilia's eyes flashed with fury, but there was no argument that could withstand the documents. She left, storming out like a hurricane that had finally met an immovable force. Later, in the quiet of the nursery, Ethan watched Lysander sleep peacefully. Celine knelt beside him, brushing a strand of purple-hued hair from the baby's forehead. "He's ours," she whispered, a smile lighting her face. "And so are we." Ethan pulled Celine into his arms, feeling the weight of the last few weeks lift. Their kiss was slow, deep, filled with the passion and relief of two souls finally finding each other amid chaos. Every brush of lips and fingers reminded them of how much they had fought, not just for Lysander, but for the fragile, growing love between them. That night, as the city lights sparkled below Sterling Manor, Ethan and Celine shared a quiet moment on the terrace, their bodies close, hands entwined, hearts in sync. "I never imagined fatherhood would feel like this," Ethan admitted, his voice soft, almost vulnerable. Celine rested her head on his shoulder, her fingers tracing circles on his arm. "It's not just fatherhood or motherhood," she replied. "It's us, building something real, something unbreakable." In the following weeks, life at Sterling Manor slowly regained rhythm. Ethan mastered diaper changes and midnight feedings, sometimes fumbling, sometimes laughing, always learning. Celine guided him patiently, the purple shimmer of her hair catching sunlight as they played with Lysander, teaching him words, songs, and the comfort of love. Romance bloomed quietly amid the chaos, stolen kisses by the nursery door, lingering touches while preparing bottles, and gentle whispers under moonlit skies. Their connection deepened, intimate and unshakable, forged in the trials of parenthood and the thrill of defying those who tried to control their lives. One evening, as Lysander slept, Ethan held Celine close on the terrace. "We've survived everything," he murmured, lips brushing her temple. "And now, I think we can face anything together." Celine's violet eyes sparkled, reflecting the city lights. "Together," she echoed. "Always." And for the first time in his meticulously ordered life, Ethan felt the unpredictable, powerful force of love, family, and devotion. A force stronger than any empire, richer than any fortune, and more enduring than any contract. Their story, full of unexpected turns, trials, and passion, had only just begun.